This is web editor for Pharma Forum, Nicole Raleigh, and I am here today with Chris Moore, President of Europe for Veeva Systems. Veeva is the global leader in cloud software for the life sciences industry today. Indeed, the company is committed to innovation, product excellence and customer success, and the company serves more than 1,000 customers. I believe there's around 1,200 customers here today.
Yep.
And they range from the world's largest biopharmas to emerging biotechs. We are presently live on site at the Veeva R&D and Quality Summit in Madrid, where the conference has explored a wide variety of topics across the fields related to R&D and quality. So Chris, yesterday you opened this year's event and mentioned Veeva's intention as a company being ever to build the industry cloud for life sciences, operations based in clouds across development, commercial and data. Indeed, Veeva's ambition is to speed access to medical breakthroughs and to cost effectively bring drugs to market through connected communications, or in other words, through partnership. So to break things down, deep dive into the themes explored here today, and I believe it's the summit's 10th anniversary, is that correct?
10th anniversary,
10th
big
anniversary.
year for us.
That's quite something. So let's begin with the fundamental concept of why a connected platform is important in clinical settings.
Yep. And actually, both in clinical settings, but also across the entire span of development and commercial. And the reason why it's so important is if you think about how a pharmaceutical company operates, it operates across many geographies over a period of 7 to 12 years to develop a drug, and then you need to market and deliver that. In order to do that, you've got a number of different groups working together throughout research, development, sales, marketing, and medical. And the lifeblood of that is the information that has to flow across. Now, if you think about how this was done in the past, you had each function had its own solutions, its own ways of working, and they were optimized for that function, which was great when you were doing that part of the job. But the issue then became that it wasn't ever just that part of the job, it was how you connect those pieces together. What we've sought to do is something that's a bit different, and no one's ever really done it at this scale before, which is to not only have the best solution for any one of those functions, but to start joining them together in a seamless way, so that, for example, in a clinical setting, you're not entering the same information 6 times into 6 different systems and then trying to work out which is the correct one. That as information flows from clinical into regulatory, for example, that's done smoothly. And in doing so, what you do is you take the friction out of the system. You reduce the chance of errors, you make it more compliant, but also you just speed up the process and you enable the really smart people that work in these companies to focus on the important thinking part of the job.
Absolutely. As you say, so doing away with the siloing, going towards this streamlined, seamless effect, doing more and faster.
Yep.
That certainly has been a pervasive theme at this year's summit. So can you perhaps tunnel deeper down into that and how that is effective, particularly with Veeva's software?
Yeah. So let me maybe just dig into clinical, because it's a really good example of this. So clinical operations, how you set up and run a clinical trial, requires you to do a number of things. It requires you to set up the study, to track the progress of that study, to record all the documentation around it, and to make sure that it is conducted in a compliant way. All of those were done through separate systems. So we've connected that into a single suite, which means that instead of having to enter that multiple times, you enter it once. What we've tried to do now, though, is given the number of companies that use that across the industry, is to go one step further to say, actually, that friction doesn't stop at the boundary of the organisation. Actually, if we could make it really easy for pharmaceutical companies to work directly with the sites where the clinical trials are run, and for patients to have solutions designed specifically for them. We could take that part of friction out, make it easier to recruit people into clinical studies with patients, because they would be able to enter in their data, avoid redundant visits. The sites would have their own dedicated software designed for them that they could choose to share the information with the pharmaceutical companies from. And then the pharmaceutical companies would be able to get that data direct from source, and in doing so be confident that it's the up-to-date data that's not been altered in transcription. And so by designing solutions separately for the sponsors in the form of the pharmaceutical companies, for the sites and for the patients, we could take that whole level of friction out. And again, speed up the process, do it cheaper, but hopefully gain better results faster.
Yes, as you say, this was something explored yesterday in the UCB and Leo Pharma panel about sort of how this optimized clinical data foundation is going to lead to better operational outcomes, better patient outcomes, but also how quality can be elevated beyond mere compliance, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you've just touched upon sort of what's in it for sites and sponsors, and maybe for CROs, if we think about that as well, working together but differently. Again, really sort of focusing quite intently on this. I want to go back to streamlined, but every time you say doing away with the friction, it seems very much an accelerated path.
No, I think streamlined is a very, very good way of putting it. It's making the flow of information through the organisation more seamless, and hence reducing friction. But no, it's a very good way of putting it.
Okay, so let's turn now to AI.
Yep.
It's ever a sort of focus lately at conferences, and you and I have spoken about AI as well in the past. And indeed, yesterday, Novo Nordisk's Thomas Senderovitz, he spoke about both the challenges and the opportunities for AI. But I want to know what your opinion is, Chris. What should pharma companies perhaps be considering when it comes to AI?
I think, as we've discussed in the past, Nicole, it's almost a continuum. And I think the big mistake is that there is one thing called AI. Mm. Actually, we're seeing everything from automation and robotics, which tends to be taking a task and doing it faster, more efficiently, more consistently, all the way through to natural language processing. And I think what we're starting to see, beyond some of the noise out there, are some really good examples of companies really having experimented and tried lots of different things, finding a few areas where there's traction. In our world, we've, for example, been working on bringing clinical trials documents in with our eTMF bot. You saw on the main stage yesterday us talking about health authority questions, which is a really good example of where you've got a good, clean, high quality data. You can use natural language processing to understand how to answer questions, and also infuse into that how you've maybe answered similar questions, so you get consistency into it. I think what we're then seeing are organisations looking at things like Microsoft Copilot for productivity enhancements, and we're seeing a number of organisations through the life science industry work there, and we're looking to make ourselves easier to connect to by companies such as that. And I see a lot of experimentation out there as well. And I think what we're going to see is where people have very focused, targeted solutions with good connected data, they're going to be able to scale those. Yeah. But I think we're also going to see a little bit of frustration if people don't have that good connected data. You can do very good trials, but actually to scale it becomes more difficult. So I think we're in a super exciting time for it right now. And I think companies seem very motivated and excited to try different things.
Certainly, and as ever with Veeva, that excitement is very much palpable as you walk around at the summit.
Yeah.
So, talking about the summit now, what have been your own personal takeaways, Chris, and have there been any surprises?
Oh, this is a very good question. So I think my takeaways are that we talk about being on a journey to deliver the industry cloud. In the development cloud now, we're up to 30 different applications. We are increasingly filling out each of the suites, and that's giving us opportunities to rethink and challenge the way that things have been done. And what's really excited me here at this summit is the amount of energy behind, and actually the level of push that we're getting to actually go faster and do more around that, and in particular connecting the different suites together. So that's been really exciting. I think, and be good to know your view on this, but there feels like there's a really strong buzz around safety. Safety has been an area where we've been pushed for quite some time by the industry to come up with a better solution for the industry. But the thing about safety is you need a fully working platform for it to be viable. It's not something where you can build a minimal viable product and then grow it from there. And my sense is we've just turned the corner on that with companies like AbbVie coming on stage and talking about the volume that they're now processing through the system, and over 70 companies throughout the industry, I think there's a real sense of, right, we're there now. It's a chance for the industry to finally have an up-to-date safety solution. So super excited on that one. And then, of course, all things clinical. From EDC and clinical data, that's really coming of age right now with many, if not most, of the majors having committed to that as a path, all the way through to clinical trials, whereas we just touched on connecting sponsors and CROs with sites and patients actually gives us a step change in how clinical trials can be carried out. So really, there's so many highlights to call on, but those are the ones that jump to mind.
Yes, definitely. As you say, the safety conversation, again, at the UCB and Leo Pharma panel, very much was the time is right for safety, but as it's ever a concern with safety, it's the potential for risk.
Yeah.
So it's that forward trajectory there with rethinking and challenging, as I think you also said.
Yeah, and I think just around that, when we talk about the power of the platform, really going back to your first question, being able to announce that connection between EDC and safety is a game changer for the industry. It's one of the most painful connect points because you've got to get it right and it's got to be done quickly, and it takes a lot of effort. So the fact that we're now able to connect those two parts of the organisation is a good example of where you came in on your first question about the power of the platform.
The power of the platform, the power of connectivity and partnership.
Yeah.
Great. So, summatively speaking, do you have a takeaway from this year's summit?
It's interesting because when we come to these summits, that we almost hold our breath as we go in, because the sense is, are we doing the right things? Are we delivering what the industry needs, and are people on the journey with us? I'm really excited that coming out of this year's summit, I feel that we've had some great feedback about that. I feel we are on the right track, and it's always great to hear, can't you do more? Can't you do faster? Can't you connect it even more? Because that gives us the energy to go away and do it. And I think coming away from this year's summit, there's no shortage of things for us to do, but that's a really great place to be.
Absolutely, and it seems to me that they're definitely on the journey with you, Chris. Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.